I'm very pleased. We are actually very close to finishing the project. It formally ends at the end of January. So this is actually a very good moment to present what we have found out. The project has been it started at the beginning of 2023, just at the moment where generative AI literally exploded in our face. Originally, we wanted to investigate generative adversarial networks and how they may pose a threat but also opportunity for democratic engagement. But since the very beginning, it was clear that guns were only a little part of the much bigger world of generative AI. Just to give you an idea, oh, my slides are not moving. Okay, now they are moving. We are a very international consortium, but this is just built into the rules of the European projects. What I would like rather to highlight how much we are interdisciplinary, and I want especially to emphasize the collaboration between the humanities and social science approach with more technically oriented subjects, and also the presence of journalism and media and citizen science. So you will see, I will explain throughout why it is important to keep in mind this interdisciplinary perspective and what good it can bring to these discussions on disinformation. We had three objectives: understanding the technical and sociopolitical potentials of generative AI, especially for the production and spreading of audiovisual content. We are now busy with the middle one, which is the regulatory innovation for Gen AI risk mitigation. But this was also part of a third objective, which is the co-design of value-based AI-generated outputs. And this really is about your question, Virginia, about can we do anything good with it? I'm going to focus especially on the understanding part and the potential positive part of AI-generated content, and especially audiovisual contents. To give you a bit of a background, when we started the project, we begin with a listing those that were circulating, and you don't need to read the details of this spreadsheet that we started compiling. But what became very, very clear immediately was that they are not all alike. They are very different in terms of their goals, whether they are authorized, whether there is disclosure, what function they perform, etc., etc., etc. So just mapping initially how diverse the deepfake creation can be made it clear for us that we could not treat deepfakes just as an artifact. So a lot of emphasis and focus has been on the video per se and on its technical characteristics. And we thought instead that we needed foundations and a theoretical approach to address this. And this is what we have called a network approach to deepfakes. And the idea here is that you really need to look at the broader socio-technical system in which a deepfake is part of. So we have to look at how and where it is developed, how it is distributed, what kind of target is there, how it circulates, the user deception, the public discourse that is thereby created, and of course the policy and legislative intervention is also part of this landscape. And as we have said a few times, it takes a village to trust a deepfake, so that is why it is so important to have a broader look at these contents and not just the technical aspects of them. So our first use case focused on the user reception, and we developed a psychometric scale to measure perceived trustworthiness of AI-generated content. What we did is producing ourselves 4 deepfakes, and we also used the 2 real videos. These videos had both positive and negative attitudes. Some had high quality AI content, so really from the technical perspective, and others had low quality. And we manipulated the content in terms of credibility of the source, but also the information, and also at the technical level, mouth movement, the voice, so really the technical aspects. And we picked 2 subjects. One is climate change, focusing on 2 important figures in the debate at the moment, Greta Thunberg and Donald Trump, and for immigration, Justin Trudeau and Viktor Orban. Hopefully it is obvious why we picked these figures to try and have these deepfakes. So what did the study do then? We had over 1,000 adults across 3 countries, and they were exposed, they saw these deepfakes, and we asked questions such as whether the video is real and why they believe the video was real, whether the participants find the video contents trustworthy, whether the video aligned with the individual's general political orientation, and in case it promotes positive or negative attitudes towards the issue itself, so how it is impacting their own perception of the contents. And also the question was whether they would further share the content that they had just seen. And here I'm going to give you some results. The one take-home message is that even low-quality deepfakes are hard to detect. We were not surprised that some high-quality ones were a bit harder, but I think what is really impressive is that people are, this is what the study shows, we are generally quite bad at finding out whether these videos are deepfakes or not. I could also show you some statistics about what happened with the real videos, and what I find interesting with the real videos is that people are uncertain. At some point they don't really know. So for some deepfakes it is easier to understand, but still we are bad. Now, one thing that clearly emerged from the data analysis is that having enough media literacy helps. It helps not exactly because one could have more tools to look through some of the technicalities that also Yannis was explaining in the previous presentation. But nonetheless, there is a bias affecting the judgment. So we are still influenced by our prior political opinion and ideas, whether we feel we are closer to one figure rather than another. And so it is not obvious to establish connections between liking, believing in a video and that sharing, although clearly these things are deeply interconnected, and people perhaps click on the share button way too easily, which goes back to questions about media literacy, not in the sense of the technicalities, but in the sense of an ethos that we should have when we are online. And so personal attitudes drive our intentions to share, and that's why it is important to work at the level of literacy, not just for the technical aspects. Okay, so hopefully this gives you a glimpse on the empirical research that we have done, and I find it complements very nicely also the research that has been presented by Sophie at least, but also of many others in the panel this morning. Let me then tell you something about the third use case, whether we can use AI-generated content for good, or put otherwise, whether this can be used to enhance digital citizenship, democracy, and all the good things that we want to have in our world. So when you look back at the network map, then we are focusing more on the public discourse, online circulation, and user reception. And so here the question was, can we convey positive messages? Will these messages positively received as well? Here we produced another set of videos, and then we discussed in some workshops with citizens. Now, big pink elephant in the room is what it means, what good means, and what would be, a good ethical goal to pursue. We did have difficult conversations in the consortium, as you can imagine, but we had to start somewhere, and so we thought, okay, let's take the Sustainable Development Goals as a basis. Of course, one can disagree whether these are so universal goals to have, but let's say that they are sufficiently accepted as good goals to obtain. And so we selected 3 of them: good health and well-being, focusing on mental health; gender equality, focusing on women in science; and climate action, focusing on the awareness on this on the climate on climate change. What we did was we created these videos, and here the input from the colleagues in visual semiotics was invaluable, because there was a lot to think about in terms of how to build these videos. Not only the figure that we wanted to use, for instance, for the women in science, we picked Marie Curie and we deepfaked Marie Curie, but for other, the question was, is it better to have a real person that is deepfaked, or is it better to have an avatar, and what kind of characteristics this person should have? So we tried several options. Eventually we had 3 online co-creation workshops with 44 citizens from different European countries, and for each session we showed the video and we discussed the videos, and we tried to monitor the reaction of citizens at the level of the emotional, ethical, but also the aesthetic experience that they had. And we hoped that this would be a way of co-designing AI for good application. Some key insights. It looks like there is a preference for realistic and relatable stories. Interestingly, voice and gestures are perceived to give a lot of credibility and empathy. And also there has been an emphasis on first-person storytelling and interactive formats. Also, transparency on creation process is appreciated, together with authorship and the end goal. And there is this theoretical contribution of how citizens interpret AI media through complex semiotic strategies. So I go back to what I said about the ethical, cognitive, emotional, and also aesthetic part. To cut a very long story short, it seems to us that yes, we can use AI-generated content for promoting good values, societal change, awareness of a number of issues. So this can be done, but it is not obvious at all how or what kind of characteristics such videos should have. So we have to pay a lot of attention to the process of building these videos, and also connecting the first and the further use case that I presented. It seems to me that literacy, not just in the sense of AI or media literacy, but also literacy at the level of argumentation theory, critical thinking skills, is becoming fundamental. I lack space here and time to present to you the second use case, where we had interviews and focus groups with journalists who had a totally different approach to the detection of deep fakes. And most of the time it was not because they were particularly skilled in the technicalities, but because they had a lot of background information and they had other types of filters. I just wanted to say this to you because I find interesting to contrast and compare also users that may have a very different backgrounds. And with this, all our publications and the deliverables are available online at our website. So if you are interested in, you can take a look in there. And follow us, especially on LinkedIn, if you want to know more about the project and what we will do to this to the ending final meeting in January. Thank you.